First up on our college football preview series, well, there they are. The Houston Cougars. Last year, a massive success for Dana Holgorsen and his team. They won 12 games but fell one win short of their goal of winning the conference title after losing to Cincinnati in the American Championship game. It's an interesting and important year for the Cougars, really. The move to the Big 12 right around the corner, the program building a new football facility, so excitement is high on campus, which means expectations are also high as on the field. 2022 promises to be another successful campaign. They have one goal and one goal only. It's conference title or bust, and say goodbye to the American in style. I'll chat with Houston Chronicle writer Joseph Duarte here in a few about these Cougars, the roster, and what he thinks of the state of the program. But first, let's look at the schedule and then hear from Holgorsen and the players as they head into the opener against UTSA. The schedule is an interesting one. I mentioned the opener in San Antonio against the Roadrunners. That's an interesting matchup. Sure, the Cougars are ranked 24th, but UTSA, an up-and-coming program, they won 12 games last year, and that could be one of those trap games for these Cougars. After that, a trip to Lubbock to face the Red Raiders. That was their only loss of the regular season last year before they rattled off that 11-win streak. And honestly, if they get by those first two, the rest of this is manageable. They don't play Cincinnati. They do have some interesting games, though, at Memphis, at Navy, at East Carolina. Those trips never easy. But the first thing on the mind is UTSA. Now let's hear from Dana Holgorsen on how he feels about this team heading into the season.
It's time. I wish we played week 0. This is my 10th year I've been a proponent of trying to play on week 0. There's nothing else to do. The last weekend in August, I mean, there's some pretty good games on Saturday. I don't know why that wouldn't be a real thing. So I wish we would have been in San Antonio playing them Saturday, but 5 days from now we'll be ready to go. But no, we're ready. Camp's been good. Came out of it healthy and got a lot of work done, so I was very pleased with camp. Guys are excited about game week and opportunity to go play. Clearly, you don't need a whole lot of motivation to play game 1, but when you look at our opponent, that gives you a lot of motivation. I mean, UTSA is coming off of a fantastic year. Coach Traylor's done a great job there in his 4th year, going into his 4th year. They're a good team, and they got they're a lot like us, as in we have a lot of people coming back. Lost some really good players, but there's only a couple of them. They lost like 2 on defense and 2 on offense, which is pretty similar to what the situation we're in. And so they got a lot of depth in their experienced football team, so you just look at their schedule and who they beat and how many guys they got coming back. It didn't take long to get our players' attention and our team's attention that this is going to be a big game.
Good stuff from the guys, and from those interviews, we go to Joseph Duarte of the Houston Chronicle. Joseph has been on the U of H beat for a long time, knows the ins and outs of that program. He and I talked about the Cougars as they embark on a year many fans hope ends with a title. Joseph Duarte of the Houston Chronicle, thanks for joining me. Always great seeing you out at U of H games. So I've asked all these beat writers and analysts the same question. When I mention Houston Cougar football in 2022, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Big 12. I know it's still a year away, but that's been the storyline of the past, 10 months or so, Daniel. And I know on campus inside the program, they're not looking ahead. But everything that they're doing right now is geared towards 2023, the fundraiser, the indoor practice facility, the football ops building that they're going to build. But you're right; they've got 12 games and possibly more to contend with before that jump. But certainly a lot of excitement on Cullen Boulevard these days.
I tell you what, if you had asked me what I thought of Houston Cougar football after Texas Tech's game last year, the Texas Tech game, I would have been like, I'm not really sure where this is headed. But kudos to them. They turned it around. And now it's championship or bust, right? I mean, it is conference championship or bust for this team. They're loaded at multiple positions. Is that how you see them heading into this season?
It is. And that 11-game winning streak that you alluded to, that springboarded them. I know that they didn't win the American conference championship game, but look what Cincinnati did. They went to the college football playoff. But that just set up everything for year 4 of Dana Holgorsen, and they've got all the pieces. They have a veteran quarterback with Clayton Tune. They've got a receiver in Nathaniel Dell, who doesn't get a lot of attention, but he's probably one of the best in the nation. And then they sort of loaded things up around those two guys this offseason. You factor in a defense that I think will again be a top 10 unit under Doug Belk, and there's no reason that this team can't run the table. And the schedule sets up nicely. They don't play Cincinnati. They don't play Central Florida. If they get past the first 2 weeks of the season, which I think are the 2 toughest games with UTSA and Texas Tech, we could be looking at an unbeaten team in November. I don't think, all that said, that they have enough juice in terms of the selection committee to be a Cincinnati this year. But if you're playing in a New Year's Six Bowl and you're going to the Big 12 next year, that's a big step in the right direction for this program.
Yeah, Texas Tech game is going to be huge. UTSA, that's going to be huge too. I mean, I don't want to bring up bad memories, but Tony Levine, when they last played UTSA here, that was not the great debut for the TDECU Stadium back in the day. Again, we're going to move on. It's good times for U of H football. Let's talk about this offense. Clayton Tune, it seems like he's been there for 10 years. But I mean, you said it, veteran quarterback, it is his show. And Dana Holgorsen, he runs that offense pretty effectively.
Yeah, and it's been an odd journey for Clayton Tune. He has to burn a red shirt his first year when De'Ara King gets hurt. The next year, De'Ara King decides to red shirt, so Clayton Tune comes in. Then there was the pandemic. So last year was really his first full season that he had some normalcy in. And look what he did. Now, he didn't start well. He had those 4 interceptions against Texas Tech, but after that, even with the hamstring injury, he became more of a pocket presence. Just became an all-around quarterback, and that, a lot of people think that hamstring injury that he had sort of was the catalyst to him maybe changing things up. But he comes in this year, he's got no one behind him that he's looking over his shoulder. He's got the weapons in place. I think, from a standpoint of, if there's one negative, they lose Alton McCaskill in the backfield with the knee injury during the spring. So if they have McCaskill, I would say that this offense could be among the best in the country. I still think it's a 35-plus scoring type of game offense. A couple people in the program told me that the word explosive could define them this year. They feel like they're going to have a lot more downfield vertical type passing attempts. So, if they put that together and you have a guy like Tune running the show, not trying to compare, but this could be kind of like those U of H offenses that we're used to from past years.
Yeah, behind McCaskill, they have Taysom Henry, right? And then the transfer from USC, right? Brandon Campbell, right? He's there too. So, they're going to kind of carry the load a little bit, but you know how these spread offenses are. I mean, once you kind of get rolling and you kind of get everybody moving in the right direction, it's like plug and play, right? And then I thought their big recruit too was obviously Matthew Golden, right? The kid that transferred to TCU. He didn't transfer. He changed his commitment from TCU to U of H. So they do have the weapons. It's just a question of the offensive line holding up and giving them everybody the time to do what they need to do, right?
Right. They had the same offensive line all 14 games last year. They had 20 different combinations in 20 games the previous couple of years. So big change there. But you're right. We're not, a lot of people aren't talking just yet about Matthew Golden, but they will be very soon. He's penciled in to start on one of the outside spots. You combine the outside inside with him and Dell, and then you throw in a Keyshawn Carter. They've got some guys that are going to be able to make some plays. Going back to the backfield, they want Taysom Henry to be that guy, the workhorse. You mix in kind of maybe a change of pace guy like Brandon Campbell, and I don't think it's really going to matter in terms of who they have back there. I think Dana Holgorsen will find a way to make it work. What's going to make this offense click is the guys that we mentioned, and it may be putting a lot on a true freshman, but I think Matthew Golden has the chance to be an 8 or 9 touchdown type guy in his first season.
Defensively, third ward defense, right? That's what they hang their hats on. Sack Avenue is something that Doug Belk was always talking about. Let's talk about Doug Belk because the Big 12 allowed some restructuring there to happen, and to keep Doug Belk, Dana Holgorsen, that was a big move for him because it seems like the guys really respond to him. From what you see with Doug Belk and the way the players interact, like that is a huge move for this team moving forward. They're paying him like he's important, and he really is.
Yeah, he's making $1 million, which there were just a few years ago some head coaches here at U of H that weren't making that. So they know that, you know, they had to keep him this offseason. He turned down a couple of big jobs, including the one at Notre Dame to be their defensive coordinator. So you know, it's sort of one of those, you're going to lose him at some point, but might as well win a championship and have a really good couple seasons in the process. But the guys rally around him. He is an up and comer. He relates to them. He gets the most out of the guys. And, you know, you just talk to everybody, and he's sort of got this infectious personality that rubs off on his players. But, you know, it starts up front. They're going to be deep again on the defensive line. They've lost some NFL players the last few years, and Peyton Turner, Logan Hall, guys like that. So, but they plug in. You know, they got a Derek Parrish on the edge. They got a DeAnthony Jones, a Nelson Caesar. You know, they just seem to just reload. And, you know, this is going to be a team that'll run 8 or 10 guys out each game. So that's, you know, that's a big plus for them. But again, you know, also the defense and the heart and soul of it, the Peyton Manning, so to speak, is Donovan Mooden at one of the linebacker spots. So, you know, they lost some guys in the offseason, but, you know, unlike past years, they're able to sort of weather the storm and plug some guys in.
Yeah, I mean, they had 45 sacks? 45 sacks last year as a team, as a defense. And I know they lose some, like you said, with Logan Hall. But man, 45 sacks, that's a huge number. They can get after some people. That's for sure. The question, I guess, with U of H has always been, especially with these years that they've had high expectations, what is the one game? Like, there's always that one game where they're supposed to win, they don't win. And that's kind of messes things up for them a little bit. Did you sense something different during that 11-game stretch? They lost to Cincinnati. I know that was a big rallying cry in the spring. They want to host the title game. Dana Holgorsen's big on hosting the title game. Did you sense something different with this team that kind of leads you to believe this might be something a little different this year with U of H?
I did. You know, there were a couple of games last year that in the past they would have just run out of energy. They wouldn't have had the guys to be able to be in the game in the fourth quarter. You know, they beat East Carolina in overtime. And then when you have a Marcus Jones who returns 2 kickoffs against SMU, the last one to win the game, you know, those are just players or moments that they didn't have in the past. So, you know, that sort of is where this program has come under Dana Holgorsen. I know he took a lot of criticism for how they handled the red shirts that year, where I believe it was 35 or more players that ended up redshirting. But, you know, he inherited a roster that was really young. I think the average age was about 19 or so when he got here. It's up to about 22, I think is what he said when we began the preseason camp earlier in August. So, you know, he's finally got the pieces in place. He's got competition because, you know, Houston in the past would just roll out players because they didn't have anybody else. So it was kind of a, you know, de facto, you know, starter at a lot of places. But based off of what they did last year, some of those games that they were able to win, I think it just showed where this program has come from. And you mentioned games that have sort of, you know, been the pothole. You know, Navy has been one. Now they go to Annapolis this year. Memphis has also been one. They go to Memphis this year. I don't think they lose either one of those games. But then, you know, you go to an East Carolina and strange things happen in Greenville. So to me, those first 2 games are what will define this season. And then I would think or would hope, based off of what they went through last year, that they've got enough that they can avoid a slip up somewhere down the line.
And finally, this might be just kind of cliche type talk, but I don't know. Is there something to be said about the energy of an athletic program feeding off of what the basketball team has done? Like,
I feel like, especially over there at U of H, there's something to be said about that, because not that they're competing against one another, but there's always, you take pride in your sport, in your program, what you want to do. I feel like what Kelvin has done with basketball is starting to trickle and kind of translate a little bit. I don't know, maybe that's just kind of cliche and me talking from the outside, but I kind of see the excitement now throughout across the board. Obviously, last year helps, but I mean, the program is heading obviously in the right direction. The athletic department is heading in the right direction, and it's kind of started too a little bit with what Kelvin has done on the basketball side.
No, there's something to that. I think Kelvin should start charging speaker fees, because every time you see him on Twitter, he's in front of the volleyball team, the soccer team, the softball team, the baseball team. Every team on campus wants to rub off a little bit of that magic that's going on with the basketball program, and there's not a better program or coach in terms of on-court success that they've had than Kelvin Sampson and the basketball team. And in fact, a lot of the football players, including Clayton Tune, have told us that, last year they looked at what the basketball team was doing. They're like, hey, we're not doing our part. We're not holding up our end of the deal. And that sort of motivated them. So, that's what you want. You want an athletic department that from top to bottom is solid. And Houston's had pieces of that. 1 year the basketball team will do well, football will do well, and then you have track and field. But it's never, it's been a while since it's all been put together, and that's what they want. And what better time now than when you're about to go into the Big 12, because there's an elevation and competition and what you're going to face. And if you can get that now, more power to you. But certainly basketball, I hate to say it's a basketball school. You saw what happened at Kentucky with Calipari and that started that thing. But the goal is to be a balanced program, and certainly football is going to carry its share here at Houston, and they just hope that there's a trickle down effect.
Well, I know the Big 12 is big, and I'm sure Dana's talking about that with all the recruits and everything that's going. You have to, right? The donors and everything. But first things first, win a conference championship. Why not go out with a bang? Joseph, thanks for joining me to preview the Cougars, and I'll see you over there at the stadium.
Thanks for having me on, Daniel.
Thank you, Joseph. You can catch his work in the Houston Chronicle all year long, and that's going to do it for this first preview. One preview down, several more to come. Houston Cougars look to lift up more hardware this year and maybe possibly make it to a New Year's Six Bowl game if everything works out. What a way to go out into the Big 12. Wouldn't that be awesome? All right, that'll do it for U of H. See you guys soon for another college preview.